The news media did not report what the issue was. They didn't report what Jesse Helms said. They didn't report what the chairman's authority is in such situations. No history, no context was given, because Jesse Helms is such a lightning rod. The liberals hate him anyway, especially liberals in the press. And so they manipulated this thing into a different day. Chris Matthews has dumped Dick Morris, just dumped him right off the program. We have tape. We'll let you hear it. The New York Times, in an editorial, dumps Janet Reno. The IRS dumps on Paula Jones. William Weld is dumped on himself here. Rick Kaplan, CNN boss, after telling his staffers, don't use the word scandal when reporting on Clinton Gore, called the White House and asked for help in getting a BBC feed for coverage of the funeral of Princess Diana. And now the White House is denying any involvement in the IRS decision to audit Paula Jones. We have all that and more. But let's go back to Weld, because Weld is going to have a press conference 2 o'clock this afternoon, at which time he will announce that he's withdrawing his nomination, or he's withdrawing. He's pulling out. He doesn't want to go forward with this. And what I want to try to explain to you is why. Because if you watched Meet the Press yesterday, or if you watched This Week Needs David Brinkley yesterday, you might be surprised. Well, why is this guy pulling out? I thought Helms was a rotten SOB. And I saw Weld. Weld was on Meet the Press, and he was demanding this and demanding that. He was standing tall. He wasn't going to give up. President wasn't going to get up. They were in this for the long haul. My God, everybody was going, we're going to go to the wall on this as a matter of principle. It's a matter of Main Street. And the first thing this morning is, hey, by the way, I'm going to go to the White House this afternoon, 2 o'clock. I'm going to pull out. Well, now, many of you, as I say, might be surprised. This doesn't sound at all like what you might have got the impression of after having watched the news over the weekend. I, on the other hand, am not surprised at all. Why? Because I know the whole story. Let's review what was said. And by the way, I got to go back and make some predictions to you, because I watched not only the meeting that Senator Helms chaired on Friday, but then the post-prandial press conference attended by Senators Biden, Lugar, Feinstein, and of course Weld was there as well. Senator Wellstone, was there as well. And you could see that they were trying in this press conference to put pressure on the Senate Majority Leader Trent Lott to overrule Jesse Helms, and they wanted that to come about by the application of pressure from the general public. The phrase Main Street was bandied about. So clearly the agenda was, the hope was to hit a nerve of the American people on the basis of fairness, or in this case, unfairness. Why it's unfair, this man should be denied his hearing. Why, this isn't a communist society. We're not in a totalitarian dictatorial state here. This is a democracy. Everybody gets his day in court. And let's get Weld his day. It's just not right to deny him his hearing, blah, blah, blah. We go to Main Street. When the people on Main Street hear about this, they'll be outraged. They'll be phoning Washington. They'll be writing Washington. They'll be emailing Washington. They'll be telegramming Washington. They'll be driving to Washington. They'll be parachuting in Washington. They'll be demanding that William Weld get his hearing. And that theme was continued on the Sunday shows. Weld himself, as I say, was on Meet the Press. He was asked by host moderator Tim Russert this question. One way around Helms here is for Trent Lott to call this nomination to the floor for a vote. Will you call on Senator Lott to do that, Governor Weld?
You know, people are trying to put the focus on Trent here. I don't really think that's where it belongs. That's not the guy who had the idea to deny a hearing. That would never have occurred to Trent in the first place if Jesse Helms hadn't got out there so far, so fast. Right now, I think the battle is on Main Street, and it's whether all the members of the Senate hear from their constituents that they believe we should have a fair hearing and that they demand a fair hearing. That's the dynamic I see playing out.
Yeah, no, that was the dynamic they were hoping and praying for. but it didn't happen. Trent Lott was on Slay the Nation, CBS, Sunday morning, and the host moderator of that sterling broadcast, Bob Schieffer, asks Trent Lott this question. Will you have the power to go around, Senator Helms, and bring it to the floor for a vote? Are you going to do that?
No, I'm not going to do that. The nominee has behaved really outrageously. He started off 6 weeks ago attacking the chairman and questioning his integrity and effect and his beliefs. He went about it in absolutely the wrong way. And it's not just now a question of Jesse Helms. There are a lot of senators that indicated they would be opposed to this nominee, including Paul Coverdale, who's, I think, number 3 on the committee. And also, I want to add my name to that list. This nominee should not be confirmed and will not be confirmed.
Well, there you have it, my friends. You see where this is headed. There must have been hardly any rumblings at all on Main Street. Anything going on Main Street yesterday, it was shopping. But it certainly wasn't a buzzsaw of activity out there over the unfairness handed down by Senator Helms to Governor Weld. Now back to Meet the Press. Tim Russert gives Weld the opportunity, before he goes, to look right into the camera and appeal to Jesse Helms. Says, what would you say? What do you say to Jesse Helms, Governor Weld?
Do the right thing, Senator. It won't hurt a bit. There's nothing to be scared of in having an open hearing where both points of view can be heard and evidence can be adduced that might explode some of your theories about my fitness to be ambassador to Mexico.
Clearly what happened here, ladies and gentlemen, is that there was no public chord that was touched. There was no resonance out there. There was obviously not even the slightest blip of concern, interest, passion, outrage, whatever you want to say, because despite this, I'm sticking for the long haul. The president and I both are committed to this nomination. We're not going any. There was nothing. There wasn't one. I mean, there wasn't one shred of anything that might even be called the beginnings of a groundswell on this. And so the numbers are in, and Weld has decided it's time to pull out. Bottom line is, in this case, you don't mess with Jesse.
White House has its hustlers. Al Gore's got his nuns. Over in the Senate, they've got Jesse Helms. He's a straight-shooting son of a gun. Yeah, he's tough as one. Tar Heel can't come, but his principles are never lost. And you better believe when his committee gets together, they all call Jesse boss. And that's because you don't tug on Superman's cape. You don't give Teddy the gin. You don't tell Hillary to go bake cookies, and you don't mess with Jesse and win.
E-I-B. A little scatting there.
Well, from up north in Beantown came a guy named Willie Weld. Said Bill wants to send me south of the border, but my nomination's being held. I was picked to be the Matador ambassador. My sombrero's already packed. I brought my liberal buddies, and it may sound funny, but I want my nomination back. Everybody said, hey, Jack, don't chug on Superman's cape. You don't give Teddy the gin. You don't tell Hillary to go bake cookies, and you don't mess with Jesse and win. Well, a hush fell over the meeting room as the senator took his seat. And when Jesse was done, well, his chances were none, and his amigos were spanked and beat. With both barrels ablazing, he read them the riot act and more. And you better believe it was some kind of story when Willie was shown the door. You don't tug on Superman's cape. You don't give Teddy the gin. You don't tell Hillary to go bake cookies, and you don't mess with Jesse and win. Yeah, good thing Willie's up on his Spanish lessons, so he can understand what Jesse told him. Hasta la vista, baby. You don't jug on Superman's cape. You don't give Teddy the chin. You don't tell Hillary to go bake cookies, and you don't mess with Jesse and Win.
Paul Silhan, and you don't mess with Jesse and Win. I like that scatting in there, little jazz. As we play off of Jim Croce, Rush Limbaugh, and the EIB Network. Back with more in a moment, my friends. Stay where you are.
You're listening to the EIB Network.
With that line, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Presumably, Delaware Senator Joe Biden, the Democrat with those stylish hair plugs on his formerly bald head and those snappy designer suits, is hip enough to at least have heard Kenny's ballad once or twice on the car radio, but he still doesn't seem to get the song's message. Former Massachusetts Governor William Weld has been tapped by President Clinton to be ambassador to Mexico. Senator Jesse Helms of North Carolina, the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, thinks Weld would be a stinky ambassador due to his liberal views on drugs, according to Helms, who so far has refused to schedule a hearing on Weld's nomination and says he will never do it. So on Friday, Indiana's senior Republican Senator Richard Lugar and our buddy Democrat Joe Biden forced a meeting, wink, wink, of the Foreign Relations Committee to discuss having a hearing anyway. And they made a lot of flowery speeches about how any president should be afforded the common courtesy of a hearing for any nominee, to which Helms proceeded to slice and dice both of these clowns by listing literally dozens of nominees that both Biden and Lugar had personally denied hearings on committees that they chaired. Now, at that point, if I were Joe Biden of Delaware and the depth and breadth of my hypocrisy on this issue had been splashed across the nation on live TV, I'd have snuck out of town and kept my mouth shut for a few weeks. But not this guy.
I mean, maybe that's what we do. But there is a contemplation in a bizarre way of despotism, I guess, in committees. And that is that you can discharge. The majority of the Senate can discharge a nomination or anything else.
They're not going to do that. They don't want, do you understand? They don't want this guy.
As bizarre as they have been exercised today. Now, the question is whether the person who controls that is going to act like Senator Helms did or going to allow for hearing.
Hey,
so let's not.
He told the truth, Joe, and you just, at long last, Senator, have you no decency left at long last?
After my comments today, when I opened very briefly, I was slipped a note by my staff saying CNN says Biden's thrown in the towel. Well, Biden hadn't thrown in the towel. The fact
it takes a special kind of person to be presented the facts in a live televised hearing. The facts in this case being that William Weld's nomination is as dead as Julius Caesar, but to nevertheless ignore the simple truth and keep tilting against windmills.
Unless you can change Senator Helms's notion by appealing to public pressure. I've served with him 25 years. I've never seen that happen. It may. It may.
It won't. Long after William Weld is taken out with the trash, Joe Biden is going to remain in the U.S. Senate. And it's a little scary to me that someone with such a tenuous grasp on reality
want that nomination discharged
can actually be seated in what we like to call the greatest deliberative body in the world. For Daybreak USA,
there's nothing in the Constitution that says that.
I'm Tom Tratta.
By the way, I forgot to mention, folks, the big tobacco deal out there is collapsing and falling apart. Kind of fun. Can you believe that is falling apart? Here's big tobacco. Stop and think about this for a second. This just boggles my mind. Here's a single industry that has volunteered to fork over $365 billion over 25 years, and to the states and to the federal government and the states, and they're about to screw it up. Anyway, there's one bit of fallout that we have not yet touched on from the William Weld situation, and it happened to our old friend, the toe sucker, Dick Morris, who, by the way, is back with his wife. We understand the newspapers today are reporting that he and his wife have reconciled. And we're always happy when we hear things like that. But last Friday night, Chris Matthews on his program I keep saying hard-boiled, but Hardball, on CNBC, had as his guest Dick Morris. And Morris ended up being thrown off the show. Literally thrown off the show. I think they went to a break, and when they came back, Morris wasn't there. But yeah, you hear Chris Matthews say, Dick Morris, we're throwing off the show. We're going to cut him off for the rest of the program. He's not going to be on the program. Now, I had a bunch of mail over the weekend on this. Rush, you got to get a tape. You got to get a tape, and you got to see this. It was great. Chris Matthews threw Dick Morris off the show. Why get a tape? Why don't you just tell me what happened? I must have had 15,000 notes, and nobody told me what happened. So I'm scurrying around all weekend trying to what happened? Why did the guy get thrown off the shows? One person alluded to the fact that that Morris took the Lord's name in vain. I said, so? That'll get somebody thrown off television these days? Stunning. So that can't be it. So finally dug it up, folks, as our proud research department was able to do. And here is what happened.
I think by then it'll have been named.
Okay.
But I think that the point is that in the last analysis, what Weld is trying to do is to become the poster boy for moderate Republicans.
Right.
And he's trying to be gavelled down, to be screwed over by Jesse Helms. It's a little bit like getting to lead a church after being crucified.
Well, Dick, what would you...
Well, I didn't like that last remark, Dick Morris, one bit.
Well,
why don't we just...
it reinforces Weld's credentials.
Tonight here, we're going to cut off Dick Morris
by the way,
for the rest
Bill,
of the show.
So that was it. Howard Feynman is the other voice that you heard. Howard Feynman from, I think, Newsweek. And he started responding. And Chris Matthews chimed in. I don't like that last remark from Dick Morris one bit. All right, we're breaking format. We're going to cut off Dick Morris for the rest of the program. Apparently the line was, it's a little bit like getting to lead a church after being crucified. Now, yeah, that's the comment. You want to hear it again? So that's the, yeah. You don't know what to listen for when you're hearing this the first time. Now that you know what to listen for, it's the last thing Morris says. The problem is you hear Chris Matthews talking over Howard Feynman at the same time, and it's hard to understand what Matthews is saying. Try listening to it again.
I think by then it'll have been named.
Okay.
But I think that the point is that in the last analysis, what Weld is trying to do is to become the poster boy for moderate Republicans.
Right.
And he's trying to be gavelled down, to be screwed over by Jesse Helms. It's a little bit like getting to lead a church after being crucified.
Well, Dick, what would you...
Well, I didn't like that last remark, Dick Morris, one bit.
Well,
why don't we just...
it reinforces Weld's credentials.
Tonight here, we're going to cut off Dick Morris
by the way,
for the rest
Bill,
of the show.
I want to hear this one more time because I know this show is not live. I don't think it's live. I think they do this show around 5:30 or 6, same time we used to do ours. It airs at 8:30 Eastern time, and I think I hear an edit in there. I'm not sure, and of course, if there is an edit in there, I don't know, obviously, what was edited out. But there's an obvious edit here, and it isn't out. Oh, there is one. There's an official. Who says there? Oh, our broadcast engineer Mike Mamone, who has a special ear for these things, says there's unquestionably in this, and this is the feed. I mean, we just took this as it aired. There obviously is an edit here. And I'll try to point it. I'd play it here one more time here, Mike.
I think by then it'll have been named.
Okay.
But I think that the point is that in the last analysis, what Weld is trying to do is to become the poster boy for moderate Republicans.
Right.
And he's trying to be gavelled down, to be screwed over by Jesse Helms. It's a little bit like getting to lead a church after being crucified.
Well, Dick, what would you...
Well, I didn't like that last remark, Dick Morris, one bit.
Well,
Why don't we just...
it reinforces Weld's credentials
tonight here. We're going to cut off Dick Morris
by the way,
for the
Bill,
rest
you
of the
sure
show.
All right. The edit is after Chris Matthews says, I didn't like that comment from Dick Morris one bit. There's an edit there. Okay. Okay, that one, well then, that is our edit. I am sorry. That is our edit. What we edited there was some Howard Feynman stuff out that was not responding to what Morris said. Then you guys are going to have to tell me where the edit is, because that sounded like to me it was it. If you think there's an edit there. So we'll play this again when we get back. If you can prove to me where the edit was, because it still sounds like there's something that was not said that we could hear that made Matthews mad. Greetings to you, conversationalists all across the fruited plain. Time for broadcast excellence. And yes, I'm here, which means that no crises will occur. Is it not amazing? I think one day off. It just is amazing to me. No matter where it is or for how long, no matter when it is, if I take any time away from the golden EIB microphone, it seems like momentous events occur. And well, I wouldn't say all hell broke loose. Mr. Snerdley thinks that you're talking about the decision by the Thompson committee to shift its focus. Yeah, I talked to Senator Thompson this morning. I talked to Senator Thompson for about 45 minutes about this. His office called and wanted to. He called, wanted to speak to me about it. So. Let me tell you what he said, just so that you can get his side of this and judge for yourself. And I'll tell you what I said to him, too. But first, what he said to me is, look, we're out of witnesses. He said, Rush, you got to understand, we've gone about as far as we can go, given where we are in our investigation. Now, you got to tell your audience that the investigation continues. We are still looking into every illegal act that we can find evidence on. And this investigation is going to continue until the 31st of December, which is when we have to wrap up. As long as there's stuff out there to investigate, it's going to be investigated. But he said, we've gotten to the point now where we don't have Pauline Kanchanalak, we don't have John Wong, we don't have Charlie Tree, we don't have Mark Middleton. These people either won't show up or they will show up and plead the Fifth Amendment. And I said, well, get as many of you can as you can and get them up there and make them take the Fifth Amendment on television. I said to him, Senator, I said, and he was I think he understands this. But there's this desire, since the focus now is shifting on the Senate floor to campaign finance reform. He says, look, we got to do that. Now, that's always been part of our charter, Rush. You people have got to understand that we committed at the beginning of these hearings to look into campaign finance abuse and to hold hearings from both sides on evidence of that. And he made the point repeatedly. He said, look, we cannot indict, we can't convict, we're not judge and jury. All we can do is collect information and put it out there for people like the voters to use in making their future judgments, and turn it over to the Justice Department, whether it's the Justice Department itself or whether it's an independent counsel, which he said he's fairly certain that there will be an independent counsel before all said and done in this matter. And I said to him, Senator, you got to understand, though, you have to understand that the people who are watching your hearings
you have to understand the hope that they have invested in your hearings. They know for a couple of things. They know that there is a large scale of apathy in the country today about things that ought to matter to people and in any other day and era probably would matter. They also know that most of the people in this country form their opinions based on things they see on television, sadly. And I could talk about that at great length, too. And your hearings were the only antidote to the mainstream press's lethargy about this. As long as your hearings were out there, as long as you were uncovering this information and you were on a roll, and boy, people thought you were really getting to the point here where you had some serious dirt on some people, they thought that at least that would provide an opportunity for those who are apathetic to perhaps be moved by what they were learning, to have their minds changed or their energies redirected. And now the one antidote to the mainstream press's sort of lethargy about this and chuckling about it has now been taken away. And they're just terribly distressed that they don't have the power anymore that your hearings gave them. He said, look, I can't continue this without any witnesses. I can't continue this with people who aren't going to contribute anything to the investigation. We look good now. We've had 3 good weeks of hearings here. But suppose we keep doing this and we turn up nothing and it looks silly and the press excoriates us for turning up nothing and this is going on way too long. He said, whatever power we have now would be diminished somewhat. So the investigation continues. We're going to take this little detour, and since the Senate is going to be talking about the campaign finance reform issue, we're going to bring in some people and talk about that. It makes no sense to talk about that after the Senate debate has occurred and perhaps even a vote. And when this is over, we'll then go back in. This has been part of our hearings all along, and this coming week anyway was going to be a bash Republican week. And so we put that off in exchange for going into the legislative phase of our hearings, which has always been part of the procedure and part of the plan. There is one thing here that does need to be pointed out, and I've raised this numerous times on this program during the course of these hearings and even before they began, and that is what of any information that is collected by the committee. Committee can't do anything with it other than turn it over to law enforcement authorities. I mean, they can't indict anybody. They can't try anybody. They cannot act as a court of law. All they can do is gather this data and turn it over. And now you've got, let's run through just the last couple days, because it has been extremely busy. And I know this is why a lot of people are just dumbfounded that these hearings have what? Well, I just, tell me exactly what I predicted. What did I? Yeah. Oh, that's true, because I didn't. I knew that they were talking about shifting gears. But it's always been part of the plan. Anyway, the Attorney General, Janet Rito, has ordered 30-day investigations of both the vice perpetrator and the president. Now, this could eventually lead to the appointment of independent prosecutors or special counsels. She got 30 days to decide whether to do it, and then after that decision, she got another 90 days to actually do it. So we're looking here at 120 days that she could utilize before she appoints an independent counsel. And the New York Times editorial today is saying, why wait? You don't have to wait. You got all the information you need now. Don't wait. Mitch Feingold yesterday, what was he on, Meet the Press? Wherever, he was on a Sunday show yesterday. He's part of the McCain-Feingold bill. Not Mitch Feingold, Russ Feingold. He's senator from Wisconsin. He said, don't wait. I mean, we got the data now. Get the special prosecutor appointed. She's going to wait, my friends. Because Janet Reno takes marching orders. Well, she does. It's obvious. She's going to wait. She's going to take as much time as she can because in this period of time, it's just more opportunity for President Clinton and the vice perpetrator to go out there and kiss babies, come up with more silly little micromanaged legislation such as, you know what, I don't think 24 hours in a hospital after having a baby is enough. I think we need another 12 in there, don't you? Yeah, and everybody's going to stand up and praise the president for being deeply concerned about it. He's got all sorts of time now to behave in such a manner as to influence the thinking of the American people even more so that when and if a special prosecutor is appointed, he's at least got some PR on his side to do battle in the court of public opinion and with the press. Now, there's a lot of pressure being applied to Janet Reno to not wait the 120 days, but that pressure is not new. It's been applied. The New York Times has been bugging her to appoint a special prosecutor for a year. We've had numerous Republicans threatening her with impeachment, no less, if she doesn't do it, and still she hasn't moved. And this excuse that she's had the documents that have forced her to act now for months, and it was just an internal FBI screw-up that prevented them from knowing what they had is the lamest damn thing I have. If that's true, it means that the files that she just figured out she's had for months probably were at the White House all along. I mean, the White House seems to be the repository for FBI data these days. Well, anyway, the Justice Department, in addition to what Janet Reno has done, the Justice Department has announced that former Commerce Secretary Hazel O'Leary is being investigated for her role in potentially illegal fundraising activities. She could get her own independent prosecutor. 3 AFL-CIO officials pled guilty last week and implicated Democratic Party officials in a scheme to funnel illegal contributions to Teamster President Ron Kerry's re-election campaign. Then you've got this suave and debonair jerk, Roger Tamraz, who is wanted by Interpol all over television, proudly describing how he bought access to the president and had popcorn with him at a movie at the White House, confirming that access was sold and that this is how you do it. And hell, it's great to go out and have popcorn in a movie with a guy who is president because he's elected, not because he's king, because he's gotten born and conceived in the right womb. So he's saying all this stuff on television, and we're sitting around, everybody's just laughing at this stuff. And Tamraz says, well, you didn't get much action done on that pipeline. What would you do different? I'd double my money. I'd give $600,000 instead of $3. And so now you've got Tamraz out there saying it didn't really matter whether he got any help. All it mattered was that he's in the White House. He's having popcorn at the movies with the president because that impresses his oil buddies in the Middle East. Proving that access is really all you need. Influence after the access is icing on the cake. Yesterday on Meet the Press, Tim Russert said that he called over 30 Democrats, and he could find only one, John Conyers, to come in and defend Reno and some of these practices. Now, Conyers is a curious choice because it was Conyers that came down on Reno after Waco and demanded that she resign. We'll go back in a moment here and we'll play you that actuality. People that you can't normally keep off of television. James Carville, Lanny Davis, Paul Begala, Charles Chucky Schumer, Barney Frank, Ann Lewis. Nowhere were Vic Camber. None of them were anywhere to be found. Now, the most dangerous place to be in Washington is between Charles Schumer and a camera. And they offered him a camera. Nowhere. They couldn't find, after 30 Democrat phone calls, they couldn't find anybody but John Conyers to trundle over there to the NBC studios. The others were nowhere to be found. The impression is that they're all running for cover. That's what it looks like. That's how bad this stuff could be getting. And it's nowhere near as bad for the Democrats as it could get. And in the context of all this, the Senate committee investigating it has decided to take some time off to refocus on campaign finance reform, which Senator Thompson told me today. It's always been part of this, part of the plan, part of the agenda, and our investigation goes on. And he said, look, just to reiterate what he said, we don't have anybody else left to talk to. He said, look, Rush, we got Ickes. We're deposing Harold Ickes again. Now, does anybody expect Ickes is going to come up here and dump on Bill Clinton? No, they don't. And I said, Senator, what about Ickes coming up and saying that he didn't invent anything here? He just studied the previous campaigns of Bush and Reagan and implemented what he learned there. And he said, yeah, do you want that? Do you want us to say that the architects, or you want our committee to be the source for information in the press that the architect of the Clinton fundraising scandal was Ronald Reagan? He said, we've got some things to think about here, and we're getting information that we didn't know we were going to get when we started this, and anybody can talk at any time, and as long as the heat gets bigger, our investigation is continuing, and I want your audience to understand that. So that's what he said. And I'm sure that you want to have some comments. And I told you what I said to him. I said, a lot of people feel really let down here because of what the work your committee had done. You withstood the initial assault after your first witness. Everybody said it was boring. Nobody was learning anything. No networks would cover it. Now, Senator, every network covers this thing on cable. And just a lot of people had a lot of hope, and they just look at it as Republicans making another ill-timed and inexplicable strategic move. He said, well, we're still investigating, and we're not through, and we're going to go with this we're going to get as much out of this as we can. But he said, I just don't know. I got no witnesses. We don't have anybody left that's got anything to say. He said, we can't find half the people. I mean, they can't find Tree. They can't find, well, I can't get them back. I mean, they just asked Tom Brokaw where these people are, but they can't get them back. And the ones that are here that haven't fled the country yet are going to come up and take the fifth. And I said, well, get them up there and make them take the fifth on camera. Well, they may do that. I think they're still charting their course here. Let's take a break, my friends. We'll be back a little long in this segment. Don't go away. We'll get to you here in a sec.
You're listening to the EIB Network.
We'll get to the phones here in just a second, ladies and gentlemen. First, I just want to show you how things can change overnight in Washington. Let's go back to, yesterday, John Conyers on Meet the Press defending Janet Reno. This is just a little bit of it. We don't need to hear a lot of it for you to get the general tone.
But she's aware of the pressure. She's been abused almost out of her mind, and I wish my colleagues would lighten up and let her do the job.
That's John Conyers yesterday. Let's go back now to April 28th, 1993. John Conyers interrogating Janet Reno about the Waco invasion.
You did the right thing by offering to resign. You did exactly the right thing. And now I'd like you to know that there is at least one member in the Congress that isn't going to rationalize the death of 24 children that weren't cultists, they weren't nuts, they weren't criminals. They happened to be the parents of people, and they were innocently trapped in there.
I haven't tried to rationalize the death of children, Congressman. I feel more strongly about it than you will ever know. But I have neither tried to rationalize the death of 4 ATF agents, and I will not walk away from a compound where ATF agents have been killed by people who knew they were agents and leave them unsurrounded. I will not authorize a military excursion with the forces of the military into that compound with a direct assault such as what you might expect in a military situation. I will stand by and be proud of the FBI as it used its restraint.
Well, I consider that a non-responsive answer.
You did not ask me a question, sir. You asked me if I had any comment, and I responded with my...
non-responsive comments.
Do you have a question of me, sir?
I have more questions of you than I'll ever get time to put before you.
I am prepared for as long as you would like to question me, sir, and I will come to your office.
Well, ask the chairman to give me some more time.
I will come to your office and be prepared to answer any question at any time that you may ever have about anything that I have ever done.
Well, I'll thank the gentlelady and accept her invitation.
So that's John Conyers 4 years ago, who's just beating her up left and right over Waco, wants her to resign. She's an embarrassment and everything else. And yesterday, here, play it again. Here's John Conyers again, very short, yesterday at Meet the Press.
But she's aware of the pressure. She's been abused almost out of her mind, and I wish my colleagues would lighten up and let her do the job.
San Diego, Carl, it's a cell call on the EIB network. Hello.
Yeah, Rush. Mega Cardiff and Encinitas surfing and skiing dittos.
Thanks. It's the El Nino it's affecting it all out there, right?
Yeah, it's going to kill us all. Listen, guy, I got to tell you, I got so mad driving down the road today listening to you talk about these hearings, and I realized that, even though Thompson has no legal authority to indict these people or whatever, I think the apathy from the American people comes from the fact that they know once this is all over, nothing's going to happen. No one's going to pick up the baton and go after any of these people. It's kind of like the O.J. thing. You could have had a video of him at that crime scene, and it wouldn't have made a diddly-damn difference in the outcome of the trial.
I think the man has a point.
I mean, that's just my feeling, and I think there's a lot of people that feel that way. They've seen these things happen before, and we go through all the motions and whatnot, and in the final end, everybody just takes a hop, skip, and a jump away.
I think that's what's happening here, especially with campaign finance reform as a diversion. Carl, thanks for the phone call. Appreciate it out there. Love the O.J. comment. Back in a moment. Headline. Nixon accepts $300,000 from shady oil tycoon from Lebanon. Can you see that? Can you imagine what would become the press focus after that? Can you imagine there being any laughter? Even if Tamraz had met Nixon and said the same things about Nixon, hey, I went and had popcorn, watched some movies and so forth. Can you imagine the press being amused? No, you can't. Tom's River, New Jersey. Mike, hello. Welcome to the Rush Limbaugh program. Glad to have you with us.
How you doing, Rush? Did you happen to catch Cokie Roberts, Donaldson, and Wills yesterday?
On This Week Needs David Brinkley?
Yeah, did you catch that?
I caught a little bit of it, but why not? Tell me what you thought of it.
Okay, first, I think it was a big joke, and even in the Thompson hearings, I think that's a joke, too, because this guy, Tamarant, since he's wanted by Interpol, why isn't this man being held under house arrest?
I can answer the question.
Okay, and I got another one after that.
All right.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. The host has been granted permission to speak by the caller. This question came up last week, and so we delved into it. And basically, Interpol does not have the authority to come in here and arrest anybody. We need an extradition agreement with Lebanon in order and Lebanon would have to come apprehend him. We'd have to let them. And we don't have the authority to do it because we don't have an extradition agreement. So he's free and clear here.
Okay. Well, also on that same show, did you catch our favorite Senator, Robert Torricelli? Did you catch that interview?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Get a load of this one. That idiot, okay, I didn't vote for him, but he...
I'll bet you did.
Oh, I hate that man.
No.
Oh.
You dislike.
Oh, yes, very much.
Yes.
He was trying to link Ronald Reagan, okay, with the same actions as Gore and Clinton making phone calls from the White House.
That's the strategy.
Yeah, and what he was saying is, Ronald Reagan, what he did was he supposedly made phone calls from the White House thanking contributors, not soliciting money, okay? He admitted he didn't solicit money. He was just thanking them. And then he's trying to say, well, he did the same thing Al Gore did. And George Wills tried to get him on it, but never followed up on it. And Torricelli just kind of slithered under the carpet and went to another tirade of his.
Well, what did George Wills say?
Well, George was like, are you trying to tell me that Ronald Reagan solicited money on government property? And all of a sudden, Robert Torricelli, well, no, I'm not exactly saying that, but we should have campaign finance reform. And then all of a sudden, he just went on to that kind of a tirade.
That's another, by the way, if Reagan, I think, made a call from the residence, if I'm not mistaken, which is legal.
Well, see, now Robert Torricelli didn't make that. He more or less said that, it was on government property.
If Clinton had made his phone calls from the residence, there'd be no problem here. But look, bottom line is that your comment about Torricelli is, well, blah, 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 we need campaign finance reform. It's strictly a diversionary tactic to take the heat off of the obvious trouble the Democrats are in. That's why people are upset that the Thompson Committee is going along with the Democrat strategy. That's what the perception is. And folks, you got to understand. I told Senator Thompson this, and his answer is we don't have anywhere else to go at this time. Our investigation needs to continue. We've fired our big guns. And we're going to, when we get more big guns, we're deposing Ickes right now. We'll be determining later on whether or not he's got anything we want to have go public in this body. But this is always on the agenda anyway. But the timing of it gives the Democrats exactly what they want. Their only diversion from this. Anyway, the first call we had, the cellular call from San Diego, which the caller attempted to explain to people's apathy. He says, look, we know that all sorts of laws are broken here, and we also know that nobody is going to get punished for it, and that's why people don't care, and that's why they're fed up, and that's why less than 50% of the people are voting in this country. That's as much a reason as anything else. It's certainly part of the mix. And then you add the pay raise to it, not the money, but the way it was done. You know what that does? It just makes all these so-called reform Republicans look nothing like reform Republicans. Instead, it makes them look like career incumbents. They're behaving just like the old career incumbents that the people thought they had gotten rid of. So the anger that normally would be there, and it's there, but it's accompanied by a lot of apathy, too, and a feeling of, I can't do anything about this. I mean, not only do these guys get away with breaking the law, this is a comment about O.J., so does O.J. We could have had a videotape of O.J. Simpson committing the crime, and a jury in L.A. wouldn't have found him guilty. That's what the caller said as a means of illustrating his frustration. Chris in Superior, Wisconsin, you're on the EIB network. Hello.
Well, good morning, Rush.
Hi.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
I guess I haven't been following real closely the hearings, but I thought it was kind of a good thing for Thompson to hold back right now. I'll tell you why. Because I think that the apathy is generated by the press, and if they're starting to dig up some juicy stuff and they back off, I think the press may take a little bit more of an interest, and maybe they'll go with it a little bit more.
I don't think that's right.
You don't think so?
No. The press would be interested, but the press cares about the campaign finance reform stuff. If anything, the press is going to praise Fred Thompson for having the courage to take this committee in that direction. That's what's going to happen. That's all the press cares. You know, the New York Times, in their editorial today, Janet Reno's baby steps, wanting a special prosecutor to investigate Clinton. They don't care about whatever Clinton did wrong in the sense that they're morally or legally outraged by it. To the New York Times, it is the simple, fastest way to get to campaign finance reform. They want people who violated the law to be convicted here, but not because they want the law enforced so much. It's because of what enforcing the law will get them. And that is an enraged public demanding campaign finance reform. Because, like, folks, one of the prime beneficiaries of campaign finance reform is the press. Campaign finance reform, no matter how it is structured, looks like it is going to reduce the ability of average citizens to have any influence in campaigns. And that means the press will have more influence. If it's tougher for outside agencies to buy commercial time on issue advocacy grounds to run during campaigns, there's going to be less of it, right? And that means the press will fill the void. And it doesn't cost them anything. They will have far more influence in shaping opinion because there'll be less competition in the opinion-shaping arena because there'll be less money available for people to buy commercial time to explain their point of view, either on a candidate or an issue. Now, we've got some antiquated campaign finance laws. And I'll tell you one of the biggest ones is the $1,000 limit on individuals contributing to a presidential candidate. And that's an outgrowth of the Watergate years, which now seems like the Stone Age to me. Well, it's 1974, you know, that's 23 years, seems like the Stone Age. $1,000 limit. But there's no limit on the so-called soft money. And that's where Clinton and Gore are in real trouble. It's not the phone calls from the offices. It really isn't that. That's a 100-year-old law, and a lot of people, and by the way, telephones were invented, by the way, when this law, barely. Alexander Graham Bell had made his first scratchy phone call to Domino's. Shortly before this law was written. But the fact of the matter remains that if they want to enforce it, they can. It's Title 18 of the United States Code, and it's a clear violation. But where they're really in deep doo-doo is, look at the president wrote the copy for some of the commercials that he was supposed to not even benefit from. Money is contributed, soft money, for issue advocacy. They take that money. Clinton devises the media campaign, writes the television commercial copy, and it therefore got converted to hard money or candidate money. See, and Gore did the same thing. That's where they're really in trouble, and that's what Janet Reno knows, and that's what she's trying to take as long as she can to look at. I mean, she's had these documents for months on her desk, but only because of a snafu did we find them last Thursday. I mean, there's a purposeful, willful attempt to delay this because that's the Clinton strategy since go back to when he didn't inhale. Go back to probably when he 6 years old is when he started the pattern here. Who knows? But delay, deny, admit nothing, and Reno is apparently goes along with this. But that's where they're really in trouble, and that's what the Democrats know. Democrats are not worried about where these phone calls came from. They think that can be handled. But this turning issue advocacy money into hard Clinton-Gore campaign commercials with Clinton so involved that he's writing the copy. That's big stuff. And you get an independent counsel on this stuff, folks, and the real harm here in terms of future electability is Gore. Clinton, probably will head up this new foundation created by Ted Turner at the United Nations once he leaves office to administer this. We'll have to talk about that too. Ted Turner's bill, $1 billion, is probably a way he did this. It's not. I don't want to appear to be nitpicking here, but just so you know, he did not write a $1 billion check. I mean, some guy was reading in the paper today, I forget who it was, some billionaire gave $361 million last year away in charity. Turner's is going to be $100 million a year over 10 years. My guess is that Ted has set up a revocable trust, and he's put $1 billion in this revocable trust, shielding it from tax. The income from this trust is what the United Nations will get. And then after 10 years, Ted gets the $1 billion back on a revocable trust. I mean, well, yeah, that's how a lot of people who do estate planning And that's okay. Look, don't misunderstand. I'm not trying to say this is totally legal if that's what he did, and I don't know that that's what he did, but it's possible. There are, if it's an irrevocable trust, then he won't get it back. I have no idea, and I don't know that he's not it's not incumbent upon him to explain it to us. It's none of our business. It's his money, and that's the point. And I'm all his money. He can spend it however he wishes. He can give it to whoever he wants. But he's not writing $1 billion check here, and he's doing $100 million over 10 years. Look, you put $1 billion in a fund, all you need is 10% every year to generate the $100 million that you've promised every year to the United Nations. And if you can't get 10% in this market, it's going to be even more than that probably. We'll be back. Take a break. Don't go away, folks.
You're listening to the EIB Network.
We are back. It's Rush Limbaugh and the Excellence in Broadcasting Network, the most listened to radio talk show in America today, a program which meets and surpasses all audience expectations. Here's Wayne in Baltimore. Wayne, thanks for the call. You're up.
Hey, how you doing, Rush?
Well, I'm fine, thanks.
Glad to hear it.
You bet.
I'm calling about, all they've been hearing, is the Thompson hearings, everything, is this campaign finance reform. All they're talking about is money. I don't think money's dirty. I think it's the power that the government yields that where the money's just the stink. The power of the government is where the rot really lies. I think if we take the power away from the federal government, we don't have to worry about the money.
Well, I don't know that. Look, I agree in principle about taking as much power from the federal government as possible. I'm all for that.
Right.
But I don't know. And I also agree with you that money in and of itself is nothing but green. It takes people to make it evil. But at the same time, I don't know that you're going to get enough power taken away from the federal government. They're still going to have, no matter what, the government's still going to be there and have influence over the regulation of industry, the regulation of various aspects of citizen activity. And as long as there is some government regulation, and do you think there's ever going to be the day where there isn't?
Oh, absolutely not.
Well, then as long as there's some government regulation, you're going to have people spending money to try to influence it.
Well, I have to. I realize you can't take away all the power. I'm saying things that have been completely overdone, such as the Commerce Clause, interstate commerce. I mean, come on, that's so far gone.
I totally agree with you on that's one of the conservative creeds, is reducing the size and intrusiveness of government. There's no question about it. So I mean, I don't want to argue with you about that because I agree with you about it.
Well,
but I don't necessarily think that if we succeed at that, is going to eliminate or even severely restrict the amount of money.
Well, I don't really want to restrict the amount of money. I think, for example, this McCain-Feingold bill is nothing but more government controlling the election.
You're exactly right. It is the government controlling. That is exactly right. You have just nailed it out there, Wayne, old boy. That is 110% correct every day of the week.
But they try to sell it to us like they're
cleaning it up.
There was, and I don't want to be politically incorrect here, but it's the nuts running the nut house here.
The inmates running the asylum is a nicer way to say that.
Well, I tell you, I didn't want to be politically incorrect, but I don't believe in that. I don't have my PC dictionary with me.
Well, you don't need it here. That's one thing you can always be confident of. You don't have to worry about whether you're politically correct on this program or not because we don't participate in that. Wayne, thanks for the call. He's got it. McCain-Feingold or any federal campaign finance law is designed to control the federal election process. And that means that they want to control speech because the election process is purely about people who are running for office attempting to inform voters of what they believe. Now, I don't mean to sound like a Pollyanna. We all know that it is about, who can lie the best, who can come up with the slickest marketing, but it's still political speech. And you've got we live in an era where it seems like dishonesty and rogues are everywhere. So the temptation is, get the government in control of that. We need honesty back in campaigns. You let the government in control of it, and you're never going to get that back. You never do. And so, Wayne nailed it there, folks. Hope you have the courage to believe that. We'll take a break and be back in a moment.
You're listening to the EIB Network.
Much as you might not want to hear it, there is more smoking news, ladies and gentlemen, and it looks good for the tobacco companies. Well, it does, in a weird sort of way. I'll get to that in the next hour with some other stuff, too. But in the meantime, Rush Limbaugh to Napa, California, one of this nation's most beautiful places. And Eric, welcome to the program. Nice to have you with us.
Rush, mega dittos.
Thank you.
Hey, I think it's to our benefit that the hearings are being moved back. I think we have the House hearings going right now. And if we can have this come to a conclusion and have our bang closer to an election time, I think it'll pay off.
Well, it's possible. It depends on if the House can get off the dime. I mean, they've got witnesses who all of a sudden aren't talking either. So it all depends on who's willing to say anything. And don't forget, folks, the bottom line here is that even after all this data, whatever it is, all this information is gathered, all that happens is a report is written. And the information is turned over to law enforcement officials. Now, absent a special prosecutor, the information will be turned over to Janet Reno at the Justice Department. There is no ability here to act on any of this information. Now, I'm not saying that is worthless. I mean, I think it's extremely valuable in terms of informing the people and educating the public about exactly what went on. But there's something about this that still is going to give people a whole lot of suspicion to doubt the offered reasons why the change in course has taken place. People says, no, wait a minute. They're just protecting themselves. There's going to be one theory. They're both guilty. These hearings would have shown it. They've scratched each other's backs and moved to safe ground.